The bounty hunters. The moment the door to leave the room is open, there's the sound of a screaming infant, as it's clear the little Orana's is throwing a fit. Harika rushes over, even as Cindy is trying desperately to comfort the child, who wetly slaps Pukey in the arm, even as he works to make sure she doesn't wiggle out of someone's grip and splat onto the floor. He then slips down and sits cross-legged, so even if she manages to thrash out of his grip, she won't be falling far. "What happened?" Slyther asks. "We don't know. She's not hurt. Her axiom is running smooth and normal. Diaper is empty, and she's rejected everything we have for her to eat." "So is she tired or something?" Slyther asks as Harika scuttles up. I think maybe she might miss the former governess. The woman was the little lady's primary caretaker for a while, but there's not anything we can do about that. The woman is in custody now, no matter how much we give her if she's attached to Emerald Shell. Then there's little we can do, Slyther remarks even as the little Orana's is gently lowered into Pukey's lap, where he places a hand on her stomach to stop her from rolling out and tries to hum in a comforting manner. But she clearly can't hear him. Cindy offers her food, tries to play, but is ignored. The diaper is checked again, and a quick consensus is reached. "We're going to double-check her in the infirmary. If she misses her former caretaker, then there's little we can do about it beyond offer comfort, even if it's being ignored. And if it's something we can't see, then we'll catch it there," Cindy says. "Sorry for not asking how things have gone yet, little buddy." "What's the verdict? We running a blockade?" Pukey asks Slyther, who snorts. "Well, maybe for fun, but we don't have to, unless she finds murderers in the maintenance hallways were clear." "Cool. Sorry, gotta go. Fussy little thing?" "I can take it," Slyther says before everyone rushes off. "So, were you a big brother before? Or were you the youngest?" "I had younger siblings, but they were a lot more distant," Slyther says as he watches his father and co-mother rush off. "I see. So do you think you're ready to be a big brother?" Harika asks him. "Honestly, it feels like something more normal than anything," Slyther says. "I grew up surrounded by hundreds of Nagasha. The more people on the ship, the less weird it feels." "So you're saying you're looking forward to it?" Letha asks, and he nods. "It's a bit of a slow way, but the more people, the better. We would have more with 10 full-grown men here and me, but we generally don't stick around in one place long enough for the whole romance thing to hit critical mass." "Critical mass?" Harika asks. "Yeah, there's a sort of time period for girls to start gathering and making decisions relating to guys. I remember listening into my sisters talking. Apparently a lot of girls prefer about 2 or 3 weeks of stalking someone before actually talking to them. They like the hunt and the feeling of being part of it. And with how most of the guys here have wives that are either always on the ship or in the middle of something then back to the ship, we're borderline recluses compared to a lot of people. Not everyone likes to wait around. You get into an area with a high enough population density and you'll be chasing off suitors with a stick," Letha says. "You have no idea how many requests Cindy deleted when we were at Octor Spin. We bonded over mocking the really bad ones." "What's the funniest one?" Slyther asks after a moment's pause. "The funniest was one that tried to be very poetic and full of nuance from some girl in Deck 1. "That was the underwater one, right?" Slyther asks, trying to remember. "Exactly. She was a Kalikas, and it was in her native language." "What's a Kalikas again?" "Like a Nagasha from the thighs up, but instead of a proper tail below that, they have a large crustacean. They're similar to Wimperus, if you remember those, but more crab-based. There are several different parallel evolution, like with the Arshna, Arachna, and Arkanas peoples. But they share the name of the Kalikas," Letha explains. "Now, I did some digging, and this one in particular was the heiress to a criminal gang leader and thought she was a poet. The problem is that she couldn't rhyme outside her native language, and it used a bunch of cultural euphemisms." "What did it translate to?" "Blunt force?" Letha asks, and Slyther nods. "All right. Her request for Yuhan was, 'Let mine snip adductor. Tasty worms can be sensed on distant currents. Want tasty juvenile dry eel with shucked face. Can Sue Sans wound many eggs. Much room.'" "What?" If spoken in the original language, she's stating she's going to get to the point. Then she compliments your beauty in a rhyming scheme, states that she seeks your hand while acknowledging your scar, and with another rhyme promises she can heal you, and then as an afterthought promises she can build a family. Unfortunately, in order to fully understand it, I had to download terabytes of cultural data and translation programs to make sense of it. So while it was actually pretty eloquent in claw speech, it came out badly in galactic trade. Claw speech, the written form of the Grasper Kalika's primary language. It's a sign language that mostly involves gesturing with one lower body claw, as the upper body goes through a full gymnastic routine. In written form, it's designed to be easily transcribed into the sand with a leg. Aren't the Grasper Kalikas the ones where the men have massive, oversized claws? Harika asked. One claw in, yes. Fiddler crab? Slyther suddenly asked. What was that? There's an animal on Earth like that. I occasionally browse that stuff when bored. But, yeah, there's a species of crab on Earth that resembles these Grasper Kalikas. Slyther notes. I'm not surprised. Without axiom, nature would resort to a strategy of try everything when it comes to life, rather than just having a few organisms quickly dominate the environment. There's likely some kind of representation for almost all life in the galaxy, or something close to it on their homeworld. That's an interesting perspective. Most people assume that a world in cruel space must be a barren hellscape, Leonard notes. At first, but then I thought about it and realized that it's basically a slow-moving super contest for everything. So everything would be tried at least once, and all sorts of weird things would show up. And since null is just axiom made too dense to use, would there still be I don't know. The unification under axiom theory is being debated back and forth ever since humans popped out of cruel space, looking so like Trets that they're still being mistaken for one another, Slyther remarks. I mean, there's parallel evolution, but then there's that, which is far from unique, but still disquieting when you really think about it. My own race being one of them. Also, the Oranas do have a resemblance to Nagasha, squishier bodies that glow and a shorter tail with an aversion to sunlight. There are less differences between a Hydro Nagasha and Deep Crag Nagasha than in Oranas from a Great Plains Nagasha. Harika notes. I don't know. I don't think she has bones, so that's very different, Slyther states. True enough. I was speaking in the terms of sight alone, because from my understanding is that under the skin, humans are downright terrifying and cannot possibly be mistaken for anything else, Harika says, and Slyther snorts. That sounds like a story. Nothing too big, but a few restaurants will occasionally panic when they scan things to make sure that the food they're serving is fine for the customers. They've got powerful acid inside them, so that sets off a lot of alarms. Slyther says, a few small panics were set off. I'll wager that's been the source of fun more than once. Busted them on a couple of missions, too. Going around pretending to be a Tret, then there's a hidden chemical scanner someone left on, and it sets a warning about acid and poisons. I saw the recordings. When that happens, things get hectic. Really? Usually their answer is to start moving fast and letting any idea of stealth go as they crash through walls and start kicking doors down so hard that they knock out people on the other side. Really? That's aggressive. When they're chasing down mass murderers that the local police don't want to go near, going in as anything other than aggressive is a good way to get dead. Have you used your drones for any of those missions? A few times, mostly as an overwatch to help the snipers Tang in J3, just their eye in the sky. Not that it hasn't come in clutch. I get a full share of the bounty if I help out. Have you seen anything? Harika begins to ask, and Slyther fully turns to her, so she looks right at the terrible scars across his face. Silly question. Let's just say that I've learned what real gore looks like, and most horror movies just don't hit the mark for me, Slyther says. Besides, there's a difference between the innocent and guilty. Pain happens. It's best if it goes to who deserves it. And who decides that? Generally the person who's about to get the pain. They choose to act like a monster. They get put down like one. Do I need to call your doctors again? I'm working on it, Slyther says, looking away a bit. Well, I'm glad you're getting the help you need. Now, do you have a favorite part of the ship? Someplace you'd like me to see, perhaps? We're not on a date, lady, Slyther exclaims, and before she can say anything, he snickers. Fine, she can play too. Oh? Is there something wrong with me? Not a leg man? She asks, shifting her forwardmost legs. They were generally for show or kicking, not actually walking. Currently not really in anything, man. Reminds me of this too much. He says, fingering the scar tissue on his cheek, but he's smiling, so it's still in good humor. As for where, well, what is there to show you? We just left where I prefer to hang out when there's nothing to do. Movie marathons are awesome, especially how bad the special effects are in so many of them. It's hilarious. How about I give you a proper tour and Slytherin goes back to his break? You still have an hour, don't you, young man? Slyther asks and Slytherin shrugs. Sure, he says before stretching. I'll go take a nap then. Then I'll work on my drones. Start making the swarm that will consume all. Well, you're not an ender of worlds, young man. Not on this ship. Says who? Me, your other mother, and your father? Just them? And your uncles? What about the Crimson Hewers? Them too. The Sidewinders? Are you kidding me? They'll be your first minions, Slyther asks, and he pumps a fist. Harika suppresses the laughter that threatens to bubble up. Right, well, I'm going to go to my nest and flop onto it, Slytherin says before slithering off. Once he's around the corner, Harika turns to Slyther. He's doing very well, and I'm actually surprised how tightly he's bonded to you, your sister, wife, and husband. He was already well primed to start bonding when I showed up, and from what I've been told, he latched on to Gregory first as his rescuer, and Cindy shortly afterwards as his primary doctor and major emotional support. He needed love, they were ready to love him, and thankfully it worked out. But he also clearly misses his old family and wants a larger one again. Harika says, he was raised surrounded on all sides by adoring sisters and mothers. I'm working on it, but it's rare for Nagasha to lay more than 3 or 4 eggs at a time. And my womb is designed to only produce them one at a time. Cobes are also single egg layers, for all that they produce them very quickly, Slyther remarks. I was thinking more that he should have more mothers surrounding him. Are you offering? Slyther asks, and Harika freezes. It is tempting. When he had just a light sheen of sweat on, I wanted to grab him and taste every part of his mouth. The sheer DILF energy the man has in addition to how inanely exotic and yet still homey. You can say yes. I could, but, well, he's technically under investigation now. Being investigated by me. I'd like to, but if I crawl into his bed, then the entire investigation gets thrown out and another woman gets sent. That doesn't sound like a problem to me. The more mothers for Slytherin, the better, Slyther teases, and Harika turns to her with an unimpressed look on her face. This is a legal investigation for the sake of a child, not a wife import service. If you want to find more sister wives, put up an advertisement. You sure? Stop trying to taint my investigation, Harika says sternly, and Slyther titters in amusement.